Welcome to Keep It Clean for Happier You. I'm your host, Nikki Tambulides. Together with my guests, we will help you reclaim your space at home. Yes, you can. We're here to help. Stay with us. Welcome, welcome. I'm so excited to be here with you for our very first show. I'm your host, Nikki. This is Keep It Clean for Happier You. Want to thank our host, IMO Media, and our guests for being here today. What are we talking about? We're talking about how to let go of stuff that you and I accumulated, often proudly, over the years, stuff we have in our attic, in our basement, garage, under the kitchen sink. Even we go out of our way to rent space outside our home for our stuff. My golden rule, less stuff translates to less cleaning. To help us, we have here in the studio 3 of the best professional organizers. Welcome. Before I introduce our guests, had an interesting observation. I did my homework. Even though all 3 are certified professional organizers with many years of successful experience, they have different backgrounds. One is a CPA, the other a nurse, and an illustrator. Please introduce yourselves and let us know how in the world you decided to become professional organizers given your education and background. I'm going to start with Caroline Caldwell from Toronto, Canada. She's joining us via Zoom. Please give us a few moments of your background and what you're doing today and how you came to be a professional organizer from a nurse.
Sure. Thank you so much, Nikki. And thanks so much for having me. I'm really happy to be here. So as you said, my background originally was in healthcare nursing, and then I went on to healthcare admin. And I had my family late in life, and my mother died when I was 44, and I had my second child when I was 44. And I also burned out on healthcare at about the same time. So I took a couple of years off work. And about the same time, we got a new digital TV in our house, and my daughter figured out how to click through the stations on this brand new machine. And she landed one day on Peter Walsh's Clean Sweep. Peter Walsh is another well-known professional organizer in the US. And I was fascinated. And so I found myself, while the kids were at school, I found myself watching Clean Sweep reruns and every version of that program that I could find. And I was fascinated for 2 reasons. One, having a healthcare background, and I was always very interested in psychology and psychiatry. I'm actually not very good with blood, but I was fascinated with Peter's, the organizer's approach with the clients and how he was working through the stuff behind the stuff and the emotional issues and all this kind of thing that was related to the stuff, but not the stuff itself. At the same time, remember I said I had been 44 and I'd had my second child. I always thought I was going to have 4 children. So I'm looking around my house at all the stuff associated with children. I thought, yep, nope, there's going to be no more kids in this family. So while I'm watching, I started packing and bagging and sorting and purging and throwing the stuff out. I then had an opportunity to audit a coaching program for C-suite leaders with some colleagues. And at the end of the 6 weeks, we were supposed to show a program for what we were going to do. And they turned to me and I said, I just don't know where I'm going to go next. I really don't know. And they all said, we thought you were going to bring us a business plan for a professional organizing business. That was in 2005. And I did do that as soon as I left that program. And I've been working as a professional organizer ever since. Now, my training has evolved from professional organizing. I am a certified professional organizer. I'm also a certified professional organizer in chronic disorganization. Again, going into the chronic disorganization and the stuff behind the stuff. And I've also since certified as a coach. So I work as a productivity coach now. Nice. But you asked me what I'm doing today. I'm actually packing up my sister who's in the middle of a move. So I'm using all my skills to pack as fast as I can and help her move. And that's what I'm up to today.
Wonderful, Caroline. Now let's go to Susan. You're up. Your floor is yours.
Hi, Nikki. So nice to see you again. Our
Same
paths
here.
keep crossing all these years that we've been in business.
That's true.
So my company is called Clutter Solutions. I've been in business for 24 years. And I started out as an accountant. So even though I have my CPA license, I really didn't do a lot of public. I did a lot of corporate accounting. I worked for an airline. I was the town accountant for a municipality. And my last job before becoming an organizer, I worked in a very big corporation, and I had a cube with an enormous window in front of me. And I used to look out that window all the time and say, what's going on out there? I felt so stuck in that environment. And one day I was looking at the clock, and it was 9 o'clock. I'd been at work for half an hour. And I thought, I've looked at the clock 3 times already this morning. I just got here. I have the whole day in front of me. And I call it my moment in the cube, where I'm a spiritual person. I sent out a prayer and said, I don't know what I'm looking for, but send me something. And then all these opportunities started coming along my way. And then I took a workshop with a professional organizer named Michelle Passoff, and she wrote a book called Lighten Up. And I found out that being a professional organizer was a career. I said, that is for me. And I started taking workshops about career changing. And within a few months, my company announced a big layoff, but they were giving us a whole year. And I spent that year just planning to take my business full-time. It started at part-time. And at the end of the year, a lot of things changed in the world, and I just launched my business full-time. I just leaped and jumped in. And at first, I thought I was leaving accounting behind for good. I thought I was just going to organize people and stuff. And then when I worked with clients, and then they knew my background, they would ask me questions about finances or about their checkbook or about their tax return. And I'd say, well, let's do a spreadsheet. Let's put it in Quicken. Let's call your bank. Let's talk to your tax accountant. And now I probably spend at least half my time still doing accounting, but I call it really financial organizing. So a lot of my clients are people that are financially just disorganized. So I still do the closets and the garages and all that stuff, but I also work a lot with people getting them financially organized, bill payment systems, budgeting, and for a lot of clients, I just do it for them.
Yeah, that's very interesting. Matt, you're up.
First, thanks, Nikki, for having me. The name of my company is Matt Byer Organizing, and before I was a professional organizer, I was a professional illustrator and art director with the Jim Henson Company, the Muppets.
Oh, wow.
And something that happened was...
Celebrity in the house.
Cool place to work. My boss was leaving, and she said, you're in charge of the department now. And so I didn't have any background in management, so I relied on something that came naturally, which was organizing. So through clutter control, paper management, floor planning, time management, we had a very successful department. And fast forward to 2004, the Disney company bought the Muppet property. I was out of a job. And this coincided with the airing of, and listen up, Caroline, Clean Sweep on TLC. I was instantly hooked. And I had never heard of such a job as professional organizer. Peter Walsh was the first person I'd ever heard use that description. And literally within 2 months of hearing that such a thing existed, I knew that's what I wanted to do. In April 2004, I changed careers, and in September 2004, opened my company, and I'm still here.
Wonderful. Caroline, I have a question for you. How do I know I have too much stuff?
How do you know you have too much stuff? Does it bother you, or does it bother somebody else? If it bothers you, then you've got too much stuff. And the degree to which it bothers you, the degree of the stuff, is going to be different for everybody. Everybody's going to have their own level of comfort. But one of the challenges we face is if the amount of stuff you have bothers somebody else. And if you are living with somebody else and your stuff bothers somebody else, then there's probably a conversation going on around that. Those can be difficult conversations, but there may be something going on around that. But can we use the space around us the way it was intended? Can we get things done? Can we find the things that we need? Can we put the things that we own back in their homes? Do they all have homes? If we're talking digital clutter, can you find your files? Can you use them? Can you get them on a timely basis?
Very good. Susan, your point of view on how do I know I have too much stuff?
Well, one of the big clues is it does not fit into your space. So often when I work with people, we're stepping over things, they're making little paths around things, they're walking around it, because whether you have a big house or whether you have a small house, we really have to fit to as much space as we have. So people that have downsized, or people that, they moved in the house and it was just them and now they have 2 kids, like we still have to manage to the amount of space that we have. And people so often will keep buying and buying and buying or accumulating, and then the drawers aren't closing, the closet door doesn't close, it's on the floor,
or doesn't
it's
open
over the chair, it's everywhere.
Yeah. Matt, your thoughts?
I'd say I have too much stuff when it's interfering with your priorities. Our company mission is to take the less important stuff out of the way so that you can get to the most important stuff. So that's what we do. And if you don't have that, those priorities pulling you forward, the process can be very difficult.
What will be the one thing, and I'm sure you guys are challenged in that department, that will push me to start decluttering and organizing? Caroline, you go first.
Oh gosh, Nikki, that is such a great question, because it could be anything. Like, it literally could be anything. One of the things I love about what Susan said was it doesn't matter how big your space is. If your stuff doesn't fit into the space, if you can't find it easily and retrieve it and store it easily, then you probably have too much stuff. But what might trigger you to declutter? It might be a move. It might be a downsize. It might be you started to argue with a death.
Yeah.
You might be arguing with a partner or somebody else that you live with. You might move. You might change jobs. There could be all kinds of reasons, but somebody will trigger that misfit. So whether it's you're not on the right priorities and you've recognized that, or you've changed the size of your house, or you've moved, or your closet door won't close, or you're arguing with somebody will trigger that. Suddenly you're seeing things differently, and it's like, yeah, I can't do this anymore. Like, something's got to change.
Yeah. What would be the one thing that will push me to declutter, Susan?
Oftentimes when people call me, they'll say that they used to be organized until. So there was some kind of life event, something that happened. So they were organized before they moved, before they changed jobs, before they got married, before they got divorced, before their parent moved in with them, before their parent moved out, before their college kids. Right? There's just so many different circumstances. And they get to a point where their life just becomes non-functional. And it's very hard to get anything done. And they feel like they waste a lot of time. They really, they try and try and try, but they can't seem to get there on their own.
And I think moving, for whatever reason, whether it's divorce, whether you're downsizing, it can be very traumatic. Matt, your thoughts?
You've asked for the one thing that puts us over the edge, and I'm going to follow my colleague's path and give you many things that I don't think were mentioned. Yeah. Certainly having a renovation in the home.
Oh, yes.
Things get displaced everywhere, and you lose sight of where things are. I don't know if new baby coming was mentioned, but sometimes you know that workout space is not getting used anymore. Let's
I think Caroline mentioned.
Oh, she did. Okay.
When she started,
missed that one.
She said like she had 2 kids, she was planning for 4, and
yep,
she's like,
okay.
yeah, I don't think
for
so.
Sure. Apologize for that.
Yeah. No, but a good point, Matt.
Certainly, more and more people working from home, and the comment I get a lot is people say, "You wouldn't believe how organized I am in the office." I absolutely would believe it, because there's accountability from other people who are seeing your desk every day. There are systems in place for where the supplies go and where the shredding goes. All of those things are worked out in the office space, but not in your home, and that's where we come in a lot.
Wonderful. You're listening to Keep It Clean for Happier You podcast. To listen anytime, go to dirtdirtgoaway.com. Also, you can live stream online at radio1400.am every Saturday. Do you have a best organizing advice, Caroline? I'm putting you on the spot.
The best organizing advice?
Yes.
Oh, gosh. Have around you the things that are important that match your priorities. What Matt said, it's so important that our lives are an opportunity to exercise our priorities and our values. And if you have stuff around your house that isn't part of that, then it's time for that to have a life outside of your door. The two things that I say to people are write it down and break it down. Write it down and break it down. Write it down and break it down. Whatever it is you're trying to accomplish, whatever it is you're trying to declutter, write it down what makes it real and tangible, and then break it down into the smallest steps you possibly can so that you are guaranteed to be successful.
Before I go to Susan, I want to mention something because I happen to know Susan as a friend. And when we had the live talk show, she gave us advice. She was a guest. And she gave us a wonderful advice. She said, start with your wallet. And goes back to Caroline when she said, start small. Start with something tangible. Start with your wallet. Don't go buy containers yet, but start with something small. Susan?
Yeah, so that's a good point. The reason for starting with a wallet is because it's something that you carry with you every single day.
I remember it.
And I was so interested when you started that statement. I thought, what did I say? What is what is Nikki going to dig out from the past here? So, but I often tell people, people want to start with the bigger things that are more visual. But if you start with your wallet, with your pocketbook, with your briefcase, your day bag, your car, these are the things that we use all the time. And that builds such a strong foundation for everything else. The other thing about that is your wallet is completely in your control. You're not sharing your wallet with somebody else.
Absolutely.
You might be sharing your kitchen, your garage, or whatever, right? But the wallet, the pocketbook, those things are yours. And if you could get that sense of control about one item that you use so often, it really builds confidence and propels you to take those principles that work in that wallet and now bring that to the kitchen, bring it to other areas of your home.
Okay. Just following up on the wallet example, I've got my wallet optimized in this little clip. Everything I need. Prioritize there first. My number one piece of organizing advice is circulation prevents accumulation. It's inspired me so much I wrote a book about it. And what I mean by that is a plan for movement in a series of manageable, reliable stages. Caroline was kind of alluding to it, break things down to small steps. And the thinking is that you're not, the traditional piece of advice is, organizing is a place for everything and everything in its place. Well, it's a good place to start, but you don't always have time to get things to their correct homes. But you can always advance things forward in manageable, reliable steps. And that actually applies not only in getting organized, but in staying organized. So I find that to be a good central rule to help with everything.
So, Matt, I'm just going to elaborate a little bit. When you're saying moving, can you clarify a little bit
example?
more? Yes. Give me an example, please.
So on the cover of my book, I have a picture of washing dishes.
Tell us all about it.
Yeah. So there's a picture of dishes circulating in the kitchen. And that's not because it's showing people, this is what you have to do. It's because it's something we're doing already. It gets the idea. You reliably find your dishes in the cabinet. It comes to the counter for plating, table for eating, sink for washing, and back to the cabinet again. Each one manageable, reliable steps. And if they're not, then you need to find ways to break them down so they are manageable and reliable. And one of my favorite examples is donations in your home. It's not realistic when you outgrow a sweater or whatever and say, I don't need this anymore, that you're going to get in your car and drive it to Goodwill or whatever. Nor is it realistic as you're heading out the door to think, I've got those 20 bags of donations in the attic. you say, forget it, I'll get that another time. However, if you move the sweater to the just to the, I call it the leaving ledge in my home. It could be a table, could be any area, basically a launch pad next to your door where you're heading out.
I love that, a launch pad.
Yeah, there's a place.
Indicating it's going.
Yeah, and real important not to have anything there except things that are heading out the door. Otherwise, it accumulates and it discourages. So then when you are ready, you're heading out the door, you grab that sweater. Then you want to have a dedicated zone for donations. I call it the donation depot in my garage. It's inches away from my car door, so that when it fills up and I'm
it's time to
heading
go,
out,
to take it.
it's a manageable, reliable
Yes.
step. I could say, I could grab this. It's super easy.
What a great technique. I never thought about that.
Yeah.
That is wonderful.
Thanks.
I love it. So another one that has to do with stuff, because the show is all about stuff and how to let go of stuff. What is the best way to stop buying, accumulating stuff? Caroline?
The best way to stop buying, I'm going to go with Susan's idea. I'm taking notes here. We're never too old to learn from each other. I love the idea of starting with your wallet, because the other thing it does is it makes you feel rich. When your wallet is clean and empty, and it makes you feel rich. And, if you leave it that way without buying anything and filling it up with receipts, you can continue to feel rich. I think the best way to stop buying is to get into the habit of, when you bring something in, is you take something out. It's not feasible for all of us to stop purchasing, because things do need to circulate. I love that one, Matt. Like, I'm thinking about what's not circulating in the top cupboard of my kitchen. But when we do circulate things, when things go out or when things come in, it's a good way to take things out. And the other thing is that, people often call me because they're overwhelmed. They're overwhelmed with stuff. And the best way to avoid that overwhelm is to manage the stuff. And if you bring more in, then you're just going to create more of that anxiety and that overwhelm. Clutter, stuff, the objects in our life have a very heavy energy. And if you put a lot of it around you, the energy is going to be very, very heavy. If you want light and breathing energy and energy to flow, then you need to reduce the amount of that hard stuff that's around you.
My dad used to say, pay with cash. That's why you're going to buy less stuff. Susan, what is the best way to stop buying stuff?
Well, one of the things, Matt and I do a monthly Zoom class called Minimal Quest. And in that, we're always looking at, what's the priority? And when we look at the stuff in our house, if we take it to the next level in minimalism and awareness, and look at not just our house, but what's the effect on the environment, on the whole world, then we're looking at something that's outside of ourselves, because every single thing we buy is contributing to what's happening in the planet and all this garbage, whatever you believe about global warming or whatever. But we all know that garbage is a problem. And the more we buy, the more we're producing plastics, the more it's going into the landfills. Look at it from a bigger picture than just your home and yourself. Look at it as everything that you do really matters to the world.
Matt?
I'd love to take this opportunity to follow up on what Susan's saying about our Minimal Quest group. Susan, myself, and Shauna Turner, none of us are minimalists. We're all organizers, but we find there's a tremendous overlap between the minimalist movement and organizing. To sort of anchor our conversations, we talk about minimalism is the intentional promotion of what matters most and the removal of everything that distracts us from it. So it starts with the intentional promotion of things that matter most, it's not about just getting rid of everything you can possibly think of and thinking, oh, now I'm saved by minimalism.
I'm free.
It's got to start with the intention. Why are you doing this? What's the goal you're trying to get to that you're blocked from? I would add one other thing, which is work towards establishing dedicated zones in your home where you have one area for one category, because this establishes limitations. It requires the process of prioritizing the things you're keeping, first seeing just how much you have, But then once you go through the exercise of editing down to a reasonable quantity, maybe with a little room for growth, after you see that point, say, okay, now stop. I've worked through this. I've decided that this is a reasonable quantity of things to keep, and I'm exceeding it. And I've got to not buy this thing, or I've got to rethink my priorities, because if one dedicated zone overflows into another dedicated zone, you're right back to where you started.
I love what Matt mentioned about the dedicated zone. Like I know a family that uses the dining room with paper and to write bills and to do the paperwork and everything else, so the kids have no place to do their homework or eat, for that matter, and have the dining room be a dining room. So, well taken, Matt. You're absolutely 100% right about space. A designated zone for everything. A last question for this segment. Should I declutter before I organize? Caroline, what do you think?
Absolutely, unquestionably. And I forget who mentioned it, but I'm just going to remind, declutter before you organize and declutter before you purchase anything. No bins, baskets, boxes, or anything. Declutter and purge first, because then you're spending your energy, your time, your focus on organizing only those things which match your priorities, only those things which you're going to love or use or are important to you according to your priorities.
Excellent. Susan, your thoughts?
Carolyn, I love your answer because it also answers the question to the last question about accumulating. Like, don't accumulate organizing products because that becomes part of the problem. But we always want to declutter first because that tells you what containers you need, how many containers you need, is it going to fit into the space? So yes, absolutely, always. It's a waste of time to organize clutter.
Matt?
Absolutely agree with Carolyn and Susan. I always say you have to prioritize to organize. And one of Peter Walsh's advice, I reached out to him. I forgot to mention that the Clean Sweep had a website and had his email. So I said, I need some advice. So I reached out to the expert. He couldn't have been more kind and gracious. He gave me some great advice. Two things. Join NAPO, that's the National Association of Productivity and Organizing Professionals, and read Julie Morgenstern's Organizing from the Inside Out. To this day, I think it's still the best book on organizing. And she mentions in it of the process for getting organized. It's the SPACE acronym. It's sort, purge, assign, containerize, equalize. And I follow that to this day with one exception. I changed purge to prioritize. Why do I do that? Because as you're going through stuff, you're decluttering, there's the obvious ways to purge, which are, declutter and donate and sell what you can't give to friends. Another thing to consider if you're prioritizing is of the things you're keeping, which are the things you need to keep most accessible? Which are the things that you're keeping just in case? Which are the things you can store more remotely? Because if there's things that you can store more remotely, that frees up space in your most vital real estate in your home.
Excellent. We came to the end of this show. Need to wrap up, but be happy. We will be back next week staying with How to Let Go of Stuff series, joined by our expert panel of organizers. This is a huge topic, all for happier you. Before we sign off, asking our guests for a gem, a quick tip. Caroline?
Break it down. Whatever it is you're trying to do, break it down into the smallest step that you're guaranteed to be successful. And that keeps the overwhelm at bay.
Wonderful. Susan?
Nothing on the floor except furniture.
Love this. Matt?
Sort the daily mail daily, divide now, conquer later, leave a clear surface.
Love it. Mine, shoes off at the door. We came to the end of the show, working on more at Keep It Clean, like tips and tricks to get you started with clutter and cleaning, how to make every day an Earth Day, how to clean less, my very own 7 in 7, and my quick tip for today and every day, shoes off at the door. Bye for now. Oppa.
At Keep It Clean for Happier You, we'd love to hear from you. For your comments and questions, use contact form at dirtgoaway.com or text Nikki, text only, at 203-581-3446. That's 203-581-3446. We will be here every Saturday. Tune in to Keep It Clean for Happier You podcast. You can live stream online at radio1400.am every Saturday afternoon at 1 p.m. and listen anytime at dirtdirtgoaway.com.